Hi there, and a happy new year. This is my December wrap-up, and it is also a short end of the year review of what I've read. The first book I read in December is this book called Truth Matters, Confident Faith in a Confusing World by Andreas Kestenberger, Darrell Brock and Josh Chatraw. It was not quite what I expected because it is kind of a response book to Bart D. Ehrman, who is a historian and have written a lot of books about early Christianity. So I didn't expect that. Other than that, it did have some good critique and was a decent read on the debate. But it's not exactly the book I would go to when reading about early Christianity. Then I read this book by Thomas J. DiLorenzo, The Problem with Socialism. And I really liked this as an introduction to the critique of socialism and what's wrong with it. It is a short and fast read book, so you get fast through it and it touches a lot of topics. But it is a book I would recommend if you are into politics and wonder about socialism. You should at least know about the arguments against it and why socialism is a failure. The only kind of problem is that it touches them so briefly, so it feels like much more could be said about each topic. So yeah, this was for me a really good book. This was a really good book to give those short arguments to answer socialism. Then I read an older book on my Kindle called Protection and Communism by Frederic Bastiat, where he is comparing protectionism to communism. And this was originally written in 1852, so it's pretty in the beginning of this socialism era, and he makes the case that protectionism is basically the same as communism. That you protect one group of production, and that makes that you have to regulate the whole market on that segment. So it's the beginning kind of introduction to the communism that says that everything should be regulated and planned by the state. Then I read another ebook, and this is a short one by Andy Stanley, and it is his book called Making Vision Stick. How to have a vision and then keeping that vision alive for a longer period of time. Not only in your mind, but also in the mind of, in his example, the church, but also in business, and what you need to do to keep that vision alive. Andy Stanley is a really good author on this subject, and he is a really good communicator and understands the importance of a good vision. And he explains a lot in this short book. Then I read another one of those short books because I saw an ad of it on YouTube actually, and it is called Foundation of Wisdom by Adela K. Dominion. This one was just really basic introduction into like the biblical wisdom theme, so it didn't add so much to the big picture. Then I picked up a book called Celibate Sex by Abbie Smith. Musings on being loved, single, twisted and holy. And this is exactly what it says. It's reflections from a then single woman about singlehood and the longings it brings and all the frustrations kind of. And this is maybe, I have read some books on singlehood, and this is one of the better ones, I would say. So it's recommended if you are single and in your 30s or late 20s. Then I read an ebook again by Milton Friedman, and this is called Why Government is the Problem. Milton Friedman is one of those economics that is on the pro-capitalist side of the spectrum. So he sees as government as the problem to capitalism and free market. And in this book he kind of explains why that is. And it is a short read, but it's a good one as well. I really like these classic books about capitalism and the free market and government systems that really don't work, and why socialism is kind of a failure and why we should get away with it. The next 3 books, also pretty short books, is by Ludvig von Mises. He is also one of the champions of the Austrian economics school of thought, and the 3 books I read is Profit and Loss, Liberty and Property, and Plan Chaos. All these look at different aspects of socialism and capitalism, communism, and these economic systems that are so popular today and maybe not so popular today, explaining why they work and why they don't work. The profit and loss is about the market, what profit and loss are, why we need the idea of profit, and why every thought about getting rid of the idea of profit as a good thing is going to fail the economy at all. Liberty and Property looks at freedom and the right to ownership of your property, and why the idea of property has been the main idea that drives our welfare up, and how that's the main driver also behind why people get away from poverty as well. And then the Plan Chaos is a lot like Protectionism and Communism book, but he takes a more recent look at the problem, including World War II and Nazism and fascism, and why planning the economy is going to fail, and planning the economy is like the beginning of failure for the whole economy. So it's mostly a critique of those systems that do this planning ahead and look at the people as something who don't think about themselves but only thinks of the common good. Then I read the longest book I read this month. It is Nathaniel Branden's book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, the definitive work of self-esteem by the leading pioneer in the field. And he has written a lot of books on self-esteem before, so this is like his latest and greatest work, and I really liked his take on it, both because he is philosophically sound on how humans work and why we need self-esteem and a good self to make it in the world, but also how we need a good self to be good to others as well, and that self-esteem is like the driver for our lives, basically. And this is a book that makes great impact on everybody who reads it, because you have to think about your own life and how you can improve your self-esteem as you go. And then the last read for the month was a reread. This is one of the first books by C.S. Lewis I read, and then I read it in Norwegian. I think it was like 15 years ago or something. So it was nice to read it again. This book is of course Mere Christianity, and it is nice to read this again, because it's such a good book, and you can see how much it has influenced all of Christendom after it came out. And yeah, it was nice and good to be refreshed on one of the major works of C.S. Lewis. And that was all of the books I read in December. It is a total of 12 books, and as you can see there was a lot of short reads, and that is because I firstly discovered a lot of these books on the authors I really wanted to check into before I read like their major works. And then of course it is the last month of the year and I wanted to meet my Goodreads goal. So I read a total of 104 books in 2016, and that is exactly what my goal was. I started a little bit slower than I should have, so I had a little bit of catching up to do this last few months. but I managed to do it, and I'm really happy about that. The next year I'm probably going to put the goal a little bit lower. I'm guessing about like 76 books or something, because 2 books a week is kind of a lot if I am as busy as I was this year. So it's all about how I use my time and what kind of books I read. And I wanted to read a little bit more substantial books this year, so it's going to be a little bit less books each month, I guess. But I'm glad I finished well, and I'm happy for how it all played out. Of the 104 books I read, it was about 210 pages per book in average. And I have done a lot of reading this year that I really wanted to get done, and checked out a little bit more of the authors I really want to read more of. So I guess I'm going to dive a little bit more into those fields the next year. And also I have planned to read more about feminist literature, not because I am a feminist, but because I want to have the knowledge about what they are writing about, so that I can understand better where they are coming from and why they are thinking how they are thinking, and maybe to see what I can agree with as well as what I disagree with. I think it will be a good project to have, to pick up some of the most popular works from both sides, of course, to just get into something different this year. And I also see that feminism is a really popular theme on BookTube, and I've gotten a lot of good input from other videos here, making it really easy to pick up the books that I may want to read in this field. Well, that was all, and I really hope you have a good beginning of the year, and happy reading.